What's up you guys, it's your girl Sierra. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video we're going to be doing my true crime series episode 3. First off, if you hear background noise, it is my boyfriend yet again playing his video game. So yeah, so that's what you'll hear if you hear anybody screaming in the back. It is my boyfriend probably losing at his video game. So in today's video we're going to be doing episode 3 of my true crime series. You guys have been loving my true crime videos, which I'm super thankful for. So this video is going to be different than the last 2 cases that I did. Like I promised, just gonna jump right into it. So if you're interested in the case of Maddie Clifton, then just keep on watching. Madeline, also known as Maddie Ray Clifton, was born on June 17th, 1990 in Jacksonville, Florida. She was raised by her parents, Sheila and Steve Clifton. She also had a sister named Jessie. Her and her sister were super close. They were only 2 years apart. So they, basically grew up together, did everything together. They were like the best of friends. Everybody described Maddie as a fun, outgoing girl. She was more of like a tomboyish kind of girl. She would play sports, she would play basketball, she would play baseball or softball. So she was definitely the little girl that was running around outside playing with everybody on the street. I was like that too. Maddie used to play baseball with one of her neighbors, and his name was Josh Phillips. He was 14 years old and Maddie was 8. He was a good friend of hers, but Josh had a rough life. Josh was born on March 17th, 1984 in Allentown, Pennsylvania. He was raised by his parents, Melissa and Steve Phillips. Now, Josh had a rough childhood. His dad was like the dominant one of the household. Josh's dad, Steve, was like the man of the house. He was really mean to Melissa, his wife, and Josh's mom. And also to Josh, he was very abusive. He was very dominant over them. He was very violent, and he had a lot of strict rules that Josh had to follow in the household. He was also a drug addict and an alcoholic, so he obviously had a lot of problems, this man, and unfortunately Josh had to grow up in that kind of environment. Also, when Josh was a kid, he walked into his parents' room and Steve had his fist in the wall. Like, I guess he had punched the wall and it was in the wall, and so that made Josh terrified of him. Like, it traumatized him. So he was very, very scared of his dad and what would to happen to him if he broke the rules or anything like that. So on November 3rd, 1998, Maddie and her sister Jessie both went outside to play. It was like a regular day. They always played outside. I'm guessing that they didn't always play together though. Like, I guess they would, run off and do their own thing and then be home at the time that they're supposed to be home. So this was just a regular day and they both went out to play. But on this day at around 5 p.m., Sheila, which is Maddie's mother, called the girls in to come inside for dinner, and Jessie came home, but Maddie did not. So obviously Sheila is asking Jessie like, hey, where's your sister? And she said she didn't know. She hadn't seen her for a couple of hours. So after they discovered that obviously Maddie didn't come home on time, and Maddie always comes home on time, they know what time they're supposed to be home, and she called them in and Maddie never showed up. So Jessie actually went on her bike around the neighborhood calling out Maddie's name and looking for her, and she could not find her. So she went back and told her mom like she has no idea where Maddie is. So Sheila then ended up calling the police and reported Maddie missing. Now, for the next several days, over 1,000 people from Northeast Florida searched for Maddie, passing out flyers and looking for her. Originally, the suspect in Maddie's disappearance was a neighbor that I don't know the name of. It was a neighbor, a guy obviously who lived in the neighborhood, who had been arrested 2 times 20 years before Maddie had disappeared, and he had got arrested for sexual assault. Those cases were later dropped. But they did bring him in for questioning, and the neighbor actually ended up failing the lie detector test in relation to her disappearance, but he had a solid alibi, so they couldn't charge him with anything, and he was dropped and he was no longer a suspect in the case. So this case was huge. The police actually wanted to stop the case, to stop searching for her, but the neighbors and the community insisted that they look for her and that they find her and that they were not going to budge. They actually ended up doing a $50,000 reward that actually ended up getting doubled. The FBI became involved in the case. America's Most Wanted offered to broadcast the case. So everybody was trying their best to look for Maddie, and they were all going to different lengths to find her. So all the neighbors, all the friends, including Josh, the troubled boy that lived in the neighborhood, and his mother, They were all out looking for Maddie, trying to find out where she could have gone. Now, exactly 1 week after Maddie had disappeared, on November 10th, Josh's mother was in his room cleaning up while he was at school, and she saw a wet spot on the floor in his room, and he had a waterbed, so she thought that maybe his waterbed was leaking. So she went to the bed and was touching on it and trying to figure out if it was leaking or where it was leaking from. So she ends up lifting up the bed, and in the cupboard of the bed is Maddie's body.
She noticed a wet spot on the floor next to the waterbed.
I thought, oh, don't tell me this has been leaking so long. Just as soon as I started to sort of manipulate the side of the bed, her leg came down and hit my hand. Intellectually, I knew.
So after she sees Maddie's body in her son's bed frame, she runs across the street to the neighbor's house, and she ends up calling the police and reporting the crime to the police. The police ended up going to Josh's school and arresting him and putting him in the juvenile detention center.
They sat us down on the couch and they told us where they had found her, or that they had found her. And the first thing Steve said was, where was she? And the police said, right across the street. That was such a nightmare. I thought we were somebody had to jump on my brother-in-law to keep him from going outside that house and going and doing something horrible. It just was, everybody was so angry.
Now, the question is, what happened to Maddie? How could this 14-year-old boy who was a neighbor to this 8-year-old girl murder her and put her under his bed? So according to Josh, on the afternoon of November 3rd, which was obviously the day that Maddie had gone missing, Maddie had went to his house and knocked on his door and asked if he would play baseball with her. Now, Josh wasn't allowed to have any friends over while his parents weren't home, and his parents weren't home, but he still did play baseball with Maddie. When he was playing with her in the front of his house, she pitched him a ball, and he hit the ball with the bat, and it ended up hitting her back in her eye. So obviously she started screaming and crying, and she was bleeding, and Josh got super frantic and scared because his dad was about to be home soon, and he didn't want him to know that he had people over when he wasn't supposed to, and he obviously ended up really hurting her. So he got super scared and frantic, so he ended up dragging Maddie into his house, into his bedroom, where he wrapped a phone cord around her neck and strangled her for 15 minutes. After he strangled her for the 15 minutes, he then hit her in the head with a baseball bat. So when he then assumed that she was dead, he stuffed her underneath the base of his bed. Shortly after he did that to her, his dad ended up coming home, and he ended up just talking to his dad normal, just having a normal conversation with his dad in the living room. And then he ended up going back into his room, and he realized that Maddie was still alive because he heard her moaning underneath the bed. So he then took a knife and stabbed her 11 times, which did end up killing her. It's so crazy that he literally did all that just because he was scared to get in trouble by his dad. Like, how do you go as far as killing an 8-year-old girl because you don't want to get in trouble for accidentally hitting her with a baseball? So when he was arrested and taken to the juvenile detention center, he obviously confessed to everything that he did and told them everything that he did. So he had to stay in the juvenile detention center until he had to wait for his trial. On November 19th, the grand jury indicts Josh for first-degree murder, and he is moved to the Duval County Jail to await his trial.
The jail ID of 15-year-old Josh Phillips awaiting sentencing tonight in the Polk County Jail after his first-degree murder conviction for the killing of 8-year-old Maddie Clifton. Tonight, a glimpse into the mind of a young killer. Tonight, we learn what doctors had to say about the mental condition of Joshua Phillips. Good evening. I'm Ellen Janae.
And I'm Jeannie Blaylock. A day after a jury convicted Phillips of first-degree murder, new documents give us more insight into the mind of Maddie Clifton's killer.
Now, 8 months after him murdering Maddie, he ended up getting his trial, which was on July 6th. And on his trial, he ended up getting life without the possibility of parole.
Phillips is not a monster. But because of an act that began as an accident and deteriorated through panic that bordered on madness, he engaged in a monstrous act.
We heard in court what attorney Richard Nichols said of his client Joshua Phillips earlier this week, but before the trial, a neurologist did what's called a mental status examination. For example, the local doctor asked Phillips if he ever hears voices. Phillips said no. He knew 4 nickels is less than 3 dimes. After the complete mental status exam, the doctor concluded, quote, he was a bright young man, quick to answer and anxious to please. But bear in mind, that is only a small part of the test done on Phillips and not a complete mental picture at all. I talked with one of the doctors today who ran the tests on Phillips, and he says he will not comment today or explain any of the other tests.
2 years into Josh's imprisonment, his dad actually ended up dying in a car accident. And on November 17, 2017, where Josh is now 33 years old, he gets a new sentencing hearing.
Really a tale of 2 different cases today as the state and the defense got to their closing arguments. Prosecutor Bernie De La Ronda making his case about the crime, the impact of it, and the need for punishment. Defense attorney Tom Fallis highlighted Josh Phillips, the 33-year-old, the man who has received numerous awards in prison, become a Buddhist monk who wants to live in a monastery if he gets out, and a man full of remorse for what happened. The judge also heard from the Clifton family today about the impact Maddie's murder had on each of them.
We were raising our girls in a Christian home where we prayed every day. What we didn't know was that the devil himself had moved in right across the street. The same devil that picked up his flashlight and proceeded to look for her, knowing good and well where she was the whole time. Why should the defendant be allowed to live normally while Maddie lies in cold in a grave?
It eroded our marriage, replaced love with grief, deep sadness, and a pain that no family should ever have to bear.
After the funeral, I don't really know if I can tell you what happened until I graduated high school, because I don't remember. I don't remember anything.
But at that hearing, the judge again sentenced him to life in prison, which he should have. So that was it. Josh will be spending the rest of his life in prison. Maddie's family remembers her, and so does the community. This is such a sad case, and this is like a case that like could have totally been avoided. All she wanted to do was play some baseball, and this 14-year-old kid that she thinks is her friend ends up killing her and then stuffing her body. It is so crazy to me, and it makes me so scared, because when I was a kid I was like that. Like I would run around outside all day, and then when my dad would be like, oh, you know, time to come inside, then we'll come inside. And I have daughters, and it makes me so nervous to like even think of something like that happening. And especially like you think when, you know, somebody goes missing, when you think when a little girl goes missing that, you know, some old man kidnapped her or something, and it was another child that murdered her. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure that you give it a big thumbs up, and you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for those who support me and my channel and my series. Please share my videos. I cannot stress enough how important it is that people share my videos, so that other people can see my videos, and so that other people can see that, and then other people can see that, and other people can see it. It's super important that people share my videos. A lot of people do, which I'm so incredibly thankful for. But yeah, the only way that I'll know if you guys enjoy my videos is if you guys share my videos, if you guys subscribe to my channel. Subscribing is such a big thing. 60% of my viewers are not subscribed to me, which is crazy. So please, if you enjoy my videos, if you enjoy my content, if you enjoy my true crime series, please subscribe to my channel so that I know that you guys absolutely enjoy them, and so that I can keep doing them. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below about this whole situation. It makes me really sad, and this is my first episode on a killer kid. There will be more killer kids, killer couples. So yeah, stay tuned for what's next to come on my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next YouTube video. Bye.